Welcome, gun runner.
Hey everybody, Kieran aka the Retroled here, and I've got another book review for you, and it's another one from my Christmas stack. And as you can see, it's the Video Gaming Manual by Haynes, and the Essential Guide to Modern and Retro Gaming Platforms. And for those who perhaps don't know, I think if you're in the UK, you'll definitely know, but I'm not sure how well Haynes are known abroad. But Haynes have been making car manuals since pretty much forever. They're incredibly well known for it, and they also have a car museum as well, which is pretty cool, which you can go and visit. I've been there. But one thing that they've done really well is, as you know, kind of things like car manuals and stuff have died off in the age of the internet, where people don't have manuals and stuff like that so much anymore because they just Google things or watch tutorial videos, whatever. Haynes found a way to diversify and use their legacy and their history to make different things. So Haynes have been making all these really cool manuals and books about different things. Like, you know, they have like a manual, you know, a repair manual for, say, the Death Star, or the DeLorean from Back to the Future, or they've done like the Haynes Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. They've done all these guides and tutorials and books and stuff covering really cool subjects, and they've been really popular. And you always see them when you go to bookshops, especially the Works. I always see their books in the Works, and they've done so many cool books over the years, stuff like that. So yeah, this is another one of theirs. This is a video game manual, and you know, it is what it says it is. You can see all, you know, many well-known machines on the front. There's the good old Atari ST, the Amiga, the 2600, PlayStation, N64, Spectrum. Bizarrely, PC Engine there shows two different models. You've got two different models of the SNES as well, the American one and the European one. There's the Master System, Xbox 360, Wii, GameCube, NES, Acorn Electron, which is quite funny to see. Easily the most obscure one they've put on the cover. There's a 2600 Junior down there as well, so they've got two models of 2600. So yeah, and some more modern stuff like the PS3 there. So there we go. So it doesn't cover every system, and actually, what they have chose to cover is actually quite interesting for some reason, and it does make me wonder if the person who wrote the book obviously decided for themselves. I mean, it's written by Yao Dines Sanchez, who sounds obviously Portuguese. First published in 2009, so it's actually quite an old book. So we go. Contents goes through all the different systems. There's a bit about the video games in general, and there's a bit about some famous games, recommended titles, key format titles. So you'll see some of this as I go through. So let's have a little look. So there's a bit about going through a really kind of brief history of gaming through from the 70s onwards. So that starts the book off. Quite a nice thing to get started with. So video games, the basics. So talking about cartridges, ways to connect, you know, different connection options, joysticks and joypads and different controllers, power packs. And then it starts off with the 2600 VCS, the first really successful mainstream console. Of course, everyone knows about the 2600. So there we go. Goes through the different models, so quite in depth, and key VCS titles. Obviously, this is very what the author thought, rather than, you know, any kind of quintessential, definitive thing. And you'll see there you've got Solaris, which I'm glad to see there, because for me Solaris is the best game in the 2600. Hero, another favourite of mine, so I was really pleased to see that there. Atlantis, another huge favourite of mine. So they're ones that you wouldn't necessarily see on every list, because I think a lot of the time people play it quite safe with these lists. I mean, you always see Pitfall, you always see Adventure, you always see Yard's Revenge, which are there. But you know, you usually see Combat, you usually see Space Invaders, you usually see a Pac-Man game. You know, none of them are there. We've got Demon Attack there though. Star Raiders, River Raids. It's actually a really good selection of games. I can't really argue too much with any of the ones they put. I'm not a massive fan of Adventure. I always found it a bit simple and a bit. I think one of them games you had to play at the time. I played it so much later on. I can appreciate what it did for the industry though. So there's the Spectrum. So it talks about Spectrum Z one that came before it. So key Spectrum titles again. I didn't really agree with any of these. I can see why a lot of them are there, like Ant Attack and Death Chase and Jet Set Willy and stuff. Back to School was one I was really pleased to see there, because that probably is my favourite Spectrum game. So I'm glad that's there. But there's a lot of other titles that I would have had, like Saber Wolf and Night Law and stuff. So, but anyway, it's always subjective, these things. But I was pleased to see Back to School there, because that's my favourite Spectrum game. So the Commodore 64. There we go. Key Commodore 64 titles again, all subjective. The Acorn Electron. Now, sort of saying it appears on the cover. Now, you would never expect to see the Acorn Electron in this book. It's a really surprising choice to have there, considering there are other 8-bit computers that were so much more popular, that don't appear in this book, like the Atari 8-bit, for example. So I'm guessing that maybe the person who wrote this book had an Acorn Electron growing up, because I can't see a logical reason why it would be there. Otherwise, Acorn Electron, not BBC Micro. Strange. Nintendo Entertainment System. Key NES titles. That's quite obvious, really. Actually, Crystalis is kind of an unusual choice. Ninja Gaiden 2 over the first one, maybe. The Master System. Key Master System titles. So that's quite cool. It's surprising everyone. I was really glad to see Master of Darkness there again. That would make my list one of my favourite Master System titles that I feel is really underrated. And Power Strike 2 as well. So I was glad to see both of those there, because they're really underrated games to the Master System. Key multi-format titles. So from those early years. So interesting to have Aliens, the computer game there actually. Cybernoid and IK+. Contra, Straight Grisor, Rainbow Islands, Gauntlet, Tetris, of course, the best-selling game of all time. Asteroid Centipede, Ms. Pac-Man. Can't disagree with any of that, really. The Atari ST. Good to see that in there, because the Atari ST gets ignored so often, and people just, talk about the Amiga and pretend the ST didn't exist. So it is a UK book, obviously, so I was really pleased to see the ST in there. Key titles: Dungeon Master, Midi Maze, Oid, Super Sprint, Captain Blood, Secret of Monkey Island. So there's a few strange choices there, I suppose. Super Sprint was on the ST, not the Amiga, but it's more known as an arcade game. So that was strange to see there. I was surprised it didn't have Time Bandit there, to be honest, because that was a quite early SD game that was quite influential on the computer's success. So the Amiga, straight after. And then there's the key Amiga titles. There's obviously quite a few there that are on the ST as well, like Sensible Soccer and Cannon Fodder and Lemmings. So the PC Engine, which is good to see in there, considering it wasn't big in the UK. It was import thing, but had a big following in other places, mostly Japan, but also the TurboGrafx 16 in America. Splatterhouse, R-Type, lots of obvious ones there. Dracula X. I'd say that's probably one of the most obvious lists. Gunhead, aka Blazing Lasers, probably my favourite game actually on the PC Engine. So there we go, the Mega Drive, and they put Mega Drive Genesis, obviously, just to make sure the Americans know. So key Mega Drive titles. So some interesting ones here, like Gaiari's, Musha, Contra Hardcore, stuff you don't always see on these lists. Vectorman 2, very pleased to see Gunster Heroes there. But yeah, not necessarily a list I agree with, but it's interesting to see different titles to all the usual stuff you see. And that's one thing that stands out, throughout this book, as I've said, is he's stayed away from a lot of the really obvious stuff. The SNES one, Super Mario RPG, you don't usually see on these lists. Shadowrun, you don't usually see on these lists. Key multi-format titles, so more Sentinel. So it's interesting to see the Sentinel there. It's not a game you hear talked about that much. Carrier Command, Zombies Ate My Neighbours. This is good old Sega Saturn, another one of my favourite consoles. So again, some really less obvious choices like Astel and Dragon Force, alongside the stuff that everyone knows like Nights into Dreams and Panzer Dragoon Saga. Assault Lanos 2, see there as well, another less well-known game. The PS1. Again, there's some more obscure stuff there like Devil Dice, Strider 2, N64. Again, Silhouette Mirage, you know, again, more unknown stuff. The Dreamcast. Another good selection of games. That one's probably a bit more obvious, but Cosmic Smash is certainly not one that you expect to see on many lists. Oops, I've lost it there. Skipped well ahead. So we've got the GameCube there. So it's GameCube titles, Dreamcast to GameCube, the Xbox 360. That's key 360 titles. Again, some unusual stuff there like Rockstar Table Tennis and Splosion Man, which you wouldn't expect to see there at all. The Wii, another console. I love the Wii. Had so much good time with the Wii, and I loved No More Heroes. So I was pleased to see that get in there, and I was pleased to see Boom Blocks. I love the Boom Blocks games; they're brilliant. So pleased to see them there. The PlayStation 3, and that is where it ends. And then key multi-format titles, so obviously brings it right up to there. So yeah, it's actually a really cool book, mainly because although it's covering a lot of obvious things in terms of the history and stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff you might have heard before. The selection of machines is quite cool because it includes the Acorn Electron, which you would not expect to see. It includes the ST, which is really good because it gets ignored so often. And the selection of games that is chosen for each one isn't the same old stuff you see in every other bloody list as well. So that was always good to see as well. So yeah, it's quite an old book, as I said, but it's a good book, and it's probably one you could pick up cheap. So if you like all these Haynes manuals, which I think everyone does, then this is another great addition to their vast selection of books, and well worth grabbing if you see it. I hope you enjoyed my review of the Video Gaming Manual from Haynes, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.